Okay, I'm gonna start it now.
Perfect. So, hi everyone, how's it going? I'm super thrilled to be here today to be presenting a career coaching roundtable in partnership with Calbright. So Calbright and Albert's List, we're coming together to present some amazing speakers that will be talking about hiring trends during COVID-19, LinkedIn strategies, and networking. So first off, I wanted to introduce our amazing panel of speakers who will be joining us today, which is John, Luana, Amanda, and Elena. So Elena, do you want to go first?
Hi, everyone. Sure. Super excited to be here. I'm Elena. I am the founder of Inner Stories, which is a career coaching service designed to empower the candidates in the job search process. And there's a funny story how I came to do this, but my background is in recruiting. I spent the last 7 years or so pretty much establishing recruiting functions from scratch in different companies at different growth stages. From 2-people startups to a pretty big team at Airbnb. I worked in tech, but also in nonprofit and also gaming for a bit and across Europe and US. So pretty diverse experience. And so I'm originally from Romania. That's where kind of the accent is from. And I guess having lived in 3 countries so far, I do understand and really, I'm a big fan of everyone's kind of unique stories. So now I'm trying to help candidates to kind of leverage their stories in the job search process. So hopefully I'll have some good answers for you.
Great. And then Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Townsend. I lead global people operations at Fivetran, which is an ETL data company and based in Oakland. And I'm also a leadership coach, and I run a lot of career development and diversity and inclusion workshops at conferences around the world.
Great. And then John, you want to go next?
Thanks, Mabel, and thanks for Calbright and Albert's List for sponsoring this. I'm happy to be here. So I'm John Beck. I'm the founder and CEO of a staffing company called Ursus that focuses primarily on technical positions servicing household technology in large companies like Tesla, Adobe, Facebook, and eBay, but also a number of startups. We are very active in career development initiatives, really across the spectrum. And in addition, we host a weekly podcast designed for job seekers and talent hunters to come together and share best practices and stories. So excited to be here and to share our thoughts and to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Luana?
Hi, I'm Lana. I'm the managing director for a firm called CyberSN. CyberSN is a cybersecurity staffing firm. I manage our West Coast operations. We certainly help out the cyber community. We're also very involved with diversity and career changes in entry-level people joining the cybersecurity community. We have a non-for-profit called Secure Diversity because security is one of the least diverse tech sectors out there. We also host an event called Day of Security, which is about training people who want to switch careers from a different tech sector into security. So we certainly are helping a lot of people not only enter the market, make career changes, but also, get their first job under their belt.
Great. And so, hi, I'm Mabel. I'm the co-founder of Albert's List. We're a community of 45,000 members in the Bay Area. 80% of our members are comprised of tech. We have job seekers, recruiters, hiring managers, a part of our community. And I mostly do event production for job seekers and helping them elevate their career. And I also do events with technical recruiters. And just to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a really, really important topic right now. And so we can get to the next slide. Perfect. So for today's agenda, we already went through introductions. So we're going to go over how COVID-19 has impacted tech hiring, how to make the most out of LinkedIn, networking virtually, how do you do it? And last but not least, we're going to have an open forum, which is going to be a Q&A. Next slide. So the first slide is the most important slide because it's been something that's impacted hiring in our economy in the past 3 months. How has COVID-19 impacted tech hiring? So for the speakers, I'm curious to know, how has recruiting and hiring changed in the past 3 months?
I can go first. I feel like there was this emergency break and now everyone has started to kind of move it along now. So if you were seeing some downward trends a few months ago, a lot's changed in the past 4 weeks. So people are opening jobs and we're seeing a lot more hiring. I would certainly say that it's becoming more challenging, particularly for the entry-level grads, which is why, you know, really doing due diligence for interviewing, networking is really important. There's just a lot less training that's available right now internally with companies. So it's certainly a challenge to onboard junior and entry-level employees right now. People are working to solve it, but yeah, hiring has just started to pick up quite a bit now. It was, you know, certainly slower a few months ago.
I would agree with that. We've seen an uptick week over week for the last 4 to 6 weeks. Now that some of the dust has settled, and I think there's more certainty in what the future holds for us. Most companies, I think, are resigned to the fact that we won't be running back to an office anytime soon, and are accepting that work has to go on, and therefore they're hiring. One of the interesting trends that we've seen, though, that has changed is that there actually is an acceleration in the process. Whereas in the past, you had to wait to coordinate schedules and people were out of town and not available for interviews, and now everyone's at home. And so you're seeing actually things go faster because there's more availability and time to actually conduct interviews. And that's great for candidates. Feedback as well is almost instantaneous. You know, people scatter away after their interviews and then it takes time to corral them. That too, we're seeing happening in a more efficient manner. So there's some really positive byproducts of the work from home movement, and certainly in the whole recruiting motion as well too.
Okay, perfect. If anyone else has any other thoughts to share, we can move on to the next question. So what tech industries are rapidly hiring during COVID-19?
I can take this one, or start it off actually. So what I've seen, and I think some of these are kind of obvious, obviously delivery, you know, for food, groceries, even prescription drugs. There are quite a lot of startups popping up in that area, which I really love. And everything related to remote collaboration, so like video conferencing such as Zoom, any collaboration and communication tools like Asana, Trello, Slack, all of these are growing. And then on the remote side, but it's also like team building, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. There are a few companies that are starting to pop up there as well, which is very interesting. Team building has become a bit of a challenge right now in these times. And one that is super big is remote learning, because it's affecting pretty much everyone across the board at all, you know, even ages. So I think these are the few that are still growing and still hiring at this point.
Great. I can also add on to that. The industries that I'm seeing that are rapidly growing are a lot of finance, fintech, blockchain, cryptocurrency companies that are actively hiring right now because of this time. I think before, when we saw the recession, a lot of finance roles were the ones that are impacted, but now during COVID, finance is a little bit more COVID proof. I'm seeing a lot of telehealth, telemedicine, on the rise too, because I think, and then also mental therapy, like I think health and wellness are on everyone's top of mind because a lot of people are being, they're going through burnout at the moment. So they definitely need a lot of support when it comes to mental health. And I'm also seeing a lot of gaming companies actively hiring as well because people are staying more indoors. So they want a more interactive activity. So gaming is on the rise and because they're getting more users. So that's what I'm seeing trending in our community.
Mabel, I would also add, I think some of the companies that seem obvious that are hiring because they're technology companies, that's one thing. But the other result of the pandemic has been an acceleration of digital acceptance and transformation, right? There were a lot of companies in that mid-market range that for a variety of reasons haven't yet begun their digital journey. And that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean supporting remote workers. It can mean changing their business model to be more online, whatever it is. Now these companies don't have a choice. And so you're seeing this acceleration or compression even in the last 4 or 5 months. And that means opportunities for technology job seekers. So a lot of people think about the obvious names first. I think it's important to look for companies that maybe don't seem like they're technology driven on the outside, but yet have real needs and will have increasing needs as time goes on. Because even when there's a vaccine and things start to come back to air quotes normal, a lot of these things will continue to be in motion and continue to be accelerated.
Perfect.
I agree with that. I think just to, I guess, sum up what everybody said, for attendees who are listening, if you are looking for jobs or will be soon, I would just ask yourself, like, what are the essential digital businesses that are out there? Because there are essential SaaS companies, just like SaaS companies that help with security and data analytics, marketing, digital products that help you stay fit mentally and physically. So anything that falls into those categories are businesses that are doing really well.
Perfect. And so then the last question will be, what jobs are the most in demand right now and are predicted to grow post COVID-19?
We are seeing a huge increase in cybersecurity demand, and kind of to what John is saying, a lot of that is just eyes on a monitor, quite frankly. Like, let's just see what's going on. So that's great for getting into the industry. Those are exactly the jobs you want when you're starting your career in cyber. Data is huge. We are collecting a lot of data. We're not interfacing with our customers as much. Those industries are doing great. And then anything that's going to continue, down either the user experience side or even AI and machine learning are doing well right now as well.
I would also add that customer support positions, which is also a great way to get your foot in the door into tech. Lots of entry-level positions. A lot of companies, like John said, are going digital, and they need digital support, customer support. And so there's a lot of positions out there.
Great. And so we're going to go on to the next slide. And then this portion, we're going to be talking about making the most of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an incredible tool I use every day, not just for networking, but as a recruiter as well. So the first thing I'm going to ask you guys is, what is the purpose and benefits of using LinkedIn?
I think it's a very interesting question because you'll probably get a different answer from each and any one of us. I like to look at it as a supplement to your resume, just because it has it's the space to kind of add all of these things that don't really fit or have any business, on the actual resume. So showcasing your work, linking projects, portfolios, articles, any kind of piece of work that is relevant to your profile. I think that's a great way to showcase it. And also some recruiters just look at LinkedIn and they don't even, especially if they're reaching out to you, most of the times they don't even bother to ask for an actual resume. Like, LinkedIn is fine if it's up to date. So have that in mind as well. But at the end of the day, it's a social media platform. So anything you can do to kind of connect and, learn, ask for advice, follow interesting people in the industry, especially in an industry that you want to, kind of break in. I think it's a great place to be. I think also one aspect that needs to be remembered is that it's still it's a professional social media platform. So we need to make that distinction between, you know, what we post on LinkedIn versus, you know, Twitter or Facebook or whatever. But other than that, I think it's a very welcoming community overall and very useful.
Yeah, LinkedIn is, you know, the way I see it, obviously there are lots of tools out there that connect professionals, but I think LinkedIn is the most widely used and most effective way to connect with professionals working and non-working around the world. It gives you multiple touch points with other professionals and with corporations around the world that you might want to work at. And it's really important to have a active, up-to-date profile on there so you don't miss out on opportunities.
Perfect. So the next one I'm going to go over is how to utilize LinkedIn to network and find a job.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this, and it sort of piggybacks off of Amanda and Elena's comments. If we can't now go to you know, various networking events and dinners and cocktail hours or whatnot, LinkedIn becomes even more important. Not to mitigate the use of other job boards. So I think it's important to be active across all of them, whether that's Indeed or ZipRecruiter or Monster or Dice. There's a lot of them. But the big one is to use it as a way to stay active and to connect with people. And again, I think most of the recruiters would agree that that's usually where they go first. We'll talk about some of the things that you should specifically do with your profile to make sure that you're being found, whether it's keywords or actually notifying the community that you are available for work. And on the platform, again, it is a business platform, but stay active. Comment on people's posts. Don't be shy to write your own blogs or messages or posts, assuming they're appropriate. It's algorithm based like every other social media platform. So activity does help your ranking, if you will, and filtering up to the top. And the last thing I would say is don't be shy about reaching out to people. You may not always get a response. But if you're politely persistent, as we refer to it, and you're thoughtful in your approach, not just spamming people, but have really done some research and reaching out, recruiters and hiring managers appreciate that. So use that to your advantage because it is an amazingly powerful tool.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what John just said about not being shy to message people, that is so important. A lot of people think that LinkedIn is a tool where you only add people you know, and it's not Facebook, it's not other social media tools. You can add people you don't know, and that's the whole point of the tool. And you know, when you're looking for a job and you're actually using LinkedIn, you know, for that purpose specifically, don't send messages that say, you know, are reaching out to a hiring manager or a recruiter saying, hey, I'm interested in your company. What jobs do you have available? Don't make them do the work. Like, make sure you're going to their career page, you're looking and to see what jobs they have open, and do some of the work yourself. Submit your resume and say, hey, I'm really a great fit for this particular role. Send them the link and show that you've, you know, done your homework and that you're taking an active role in your job search.
Great. And just to add to that, people usually ask me what's the one advice that I'd have for feedback on people's profiles is, so as a recruiter, I use Boolean search strings. And so I just type in keywords and say, like, I'm looking for a front-end developer, and I type in all the coding languages. So the advice that I have for job seekers is really tech stack your LinkedIn. So you could put in the knowledge that you have as keywords so you can be searchable on LinkedIn.
I also think that headlines are really important. You know, that's the first thing that most people read when they go to a LinkedIn profile, and make sure that whatever's in there is how you want to be represented. So, yeah.
Perfect. So what are some of the best methods to connect with recruiters and hiring managers on LinkedIn?
I think there are, you have to, getting in touch with a recruiter or a hiring manager is a one-to-one relationship. I think when you're on LinkedIn, you have to realize that your one-to-one relationship is super important. You also have to do everything we were all just talking about and engage in your community, because they will be able to look back and see that you're posting about things in your community or engaging in those conversations and leaving comments. So that's something to kind of think about. You know, you don't want to just reach out one-on-one in private messages to people and not be active at all in the LinkedIn community. You have to kind of do both. In terms of reaching out to people who you think are might be able to help you with your search, you definitely don't want to do like what Amanda said, like, give me a job, come with something interesting. I submitted my resume to this company. I'm really interested to hear more about your engineering culture, be interested in what's going on at their company, and then just be like, well, could you, give me a good word to the hiring manager if you see him or you're on a Zoom with him. So it's definitely about, putting that one-to-one reach out there, and do be persistent. People want to help. The community is kind. They want to help you. They just might forget to follow up, and, just be really polite in what you're asking for the first time around to start off the conversation.
I wanted to also add a piece of advice. You don't only have to reach out to recruiters and hiring managers. If you're interested in a job at another company, you can also reach out to someone who would be a peer. Lots of companies have referral bonuses as well. And if you reach out to someone who would be a peer and you say that you're really interested, send them your resume and ask them to refer you to the recruiting team. That's another great way to get your foot in the door.
I would also add, from a recruiting perspective, especially if it's a bigger company, and I did get this quite a lot at Airbnb, for example, is people just saying, hey, Elena, I saw you're a recruiter at Airbnb. I just applied for this role, and it's something that I don't even know, it's happening in a completely different team. So I would say, kind of ask, and maybe have that curiosity of asking, and courtesy of asking, like, hey, are you working on this one? Or if not, like, can you just point me in the right direction? And I think, that also helps with creating a connection, in the industry, but also not putting so much pressure on, on the recruiter, because it's kind of like, I don't know. And it sounds weird for a person working at the company in recruiting to not know about that other role. And also, like, some recruiters, to your point, Mabel, like on the flip side of that, some recruiters actually write in their description of that company, like, recruiting for, front end. So it's kind of, it goes both ways, I think. So just a bit of research and kind of leading with curiosity and empathy, and definitely following up, but, polite and gentle, because everyone is kind of going through a lot right now.
Well, thank you for everyone's responses on this LinkedIn slide. We're going to go to the next slide. So this is my favorite topic, which is networking, and networking virtually, and how do you do it? And so this topic has been on top of mind ever since the past 3 months, when now everyone is doing everything virtually, on Zoom, on different conferencing platforms, and also on LinkedIn as well. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, what and why is it important to network?
I'll start. I think it's important when you're looking for a job, because you never know where the opportunity may come from. And one of the things and I get a lot of people, given that we're a recruiting company, that reach out to me personally or have their kids or friends reach out to me. And so many times they start the conversation by saying, I'm sorry, I don't want to waste your time. And that's absolutely not true. I may not necessarily have a job or opportunity for them, but I am always happy to refer them to other people in my network who then may know people in their network. So you get the ripple effect, right? I met Mabel Chan through somebody who reached out to me, who was interested in talking to me about a job for somebody else. Mabel introduced me to Albert from Albert's List. I'm now sitting on this webinar. Wouldn't have happened if that first person hadn't reached out to me. And oh, by the way, now I know Elena, Lana, and Amanda, who are in my network. So the power of the network comes from activity. And I think it's natural human nature to sometimes say, oh, I'm just bugging people and I don't want to make the effort. You have to overcome that and just reach out, because if you don't ask, you'll never know. In sales, there's the famous adage of you're dialing for no's, right? You may get 10 no's before you get your first yes. That's what networking is all about.
I think networking is probably the most important way to find a job. My last 4 positions I have gotten offers through networking, and so I think it's a really popular way to find your next position. And I think the last time I looked, 80% of people find their jobs through networking or through someone you know. And that's why it's important when you're on LinkedIn, back to the LinkedIn discussion, when you see those 2nd and 3rd degree connections, pay attention to those and see who you know that knows that person who works at that company that you're interested in, because it really does make a difference.
I would also add that, it's not, this like networking thing for me doesn't really come naturally at all. So I did struggle quite a bit, to what John was saying, to kind of overcome that. And then I started, I guess a trick for me that worked is to continuously network and kind of view it more as a learning opportunity, and kind of learning from people that, you see a cool background in the industry that you're interested in, and you're like, oh, cool. How did you do that? Like, just have that curiosity about people. And I think if you do that, it becomes a bit more, I guess, comfortable and almost natural. And when, it does come to time to look for a job, then you do already have that network, and it's going to be like easier to reach back out and say like, oh, hey, by the way, now I'm actually in the market for this kind of job, and kind of continue the conversation from there. So not, I think it's very, like for me, it's very overwhelming to just like go in and network specifically to get a job. And I think if you kind of get in the habit of doing it, it becomes a bit easier.
Yeah, and I can speak personally from networking. So about 5 years ago, I lived in Orange County, and I decided to move back to the Bay Area and work in tech. That was like my dream. And so I came to San Francisco, and I realized that I didn't know a lot of people. And when I started working, I worked at a gaming company, and a lot of the people in the gaming company, there was just only 5 other women in the gaming company. And so it was just really hard to find my tribe. So what I did was, when I realized that, I added myself to 25 communities on the internet and on LinkedIn. And I started to go to events, like Women in Tech events, expat women events, like all these different events. And then that's how I found Albert, and that's how I became a co-founder of Community. And so I'm a huge advocate of like just being curious and exploring and seeing where your connections will lead to. So we can go on to the next one, which is how do I network? What are some of the best platforms and communities and apps and websites to use?
LinkedIn is probably the most obvious one, and it is really great. I would use that the most. The only thing I would keep in mind is, ask for referrals. People ask me to refer them to people all the time. Sometimes I actually don't really know those people, because to what Amanda says, I connect with people who are just in my space. So sometimes I can give you really great referrals. Sometimes I cannot. I will always try. Otherwise, I love Meetup. I love virtual meetups. I think those are wonderful. I think we're still trying to figure out a lot of tech challenges to, have more of that one-on-one connection in those forums. But certainly when we're able to meet one another again, going and meeting those people in person, that can change your career very quickly. So I really love meetup.com.
Great, and I can also mention that since I manage one of the biggest communities for job seekers in the Bay Area, using Facebook as a platform for networking is somewhat that I'm used to, just because if you don't have a referral in your network, for example, you can post on Albert's list like, hey, I'm looking for a connection into Niantic because I want to work in gaming. And then people will actually tag people that work at Niantic, and they'll say like, hey, why don't you talk to X person who works at Niantic? So that's an example of one that I really like using. There's a couple of other ones that I like using too, Shaper and lunchclub.ai. Just because like I know my circle is kind of smaller in the Bay Area, but then if I go on Lunch Club or Shaper, I get to actually like network with a bunch of like founders, entrepreneurs, people looking for other roles in which you can help them too.
And Twitter is amazing. Everyone's on Twitter. I'm not great at it, but people love it. My colleagues do great work. So get on Twitter.
Perfect. So what are some of the best practices and effective strategies for networking in the tech industry?
I think going to events like this, honestly, a lot of companies who, including 5tran actually, we're doing a lot of in-person recruiting events. And now we've had to switch to digital events. So try to go to those and reach out to the speakers that you listen to, just like us and other ones that you see. I think that the tech industry it's large, but it's also very tightly knit. Everybody knows someone who knows someone. And, you know, the more people that you can put yourself in touch with, the better. And, you know, just like what I was saying, a lot of companies have those referral programs. And so the more people you know, the more beneficial it is.
I think it's important, and I think we've touched on it a couple times, but just to hammer home the importance of being prepared though when you're reaching out to somebody under the assumption that you're going to have a conversation with them. You know, take a little bit of time to do some research and understand there's really no excuse if you talk to a potential candidate, especially if you're at the interview phase, but even at the networking phase, if you've reached out to me as a hiring manager or somebody that's potentially going to open inroads for you to get a job and don't really know about the company, it's a simple Google search, right? Set, you know, alerts, news alerts for the companies that you're interested. Stay on top of recent press releases or, you know, quarterly earnings or, you know, product releases. That goes a long way. I can't tell you how many times we'll interview people and they'll have no idea. And it's an immediate discard, to be frank, so.
And follow-up is key. You know I go have coffee with, you know, my, you know, colleagues, niece, and, you know, giving, okay, I can get you intros here. I can get you intros here. I also have my job and my life and all the things I have to do. It might, you know, drop. So follow up with them, you know, 3 days later, a week later. We want to help. Everyone wants to help each other, particularly right now. We just have to work with each other. So I think follow-up is really important.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, if you follow up with if you like respond to a recruiter and they can't follow up, don't be afraid to ping them again and follow up with them a second time, because maybe they would have missed it. Because I do that sometimes as well. It's like, oh, like this was buried in my LinkedIn inbox. So feel free to do that. And last but not least, we'll go on to the Q&A portion of today's event. So these are the questions that Calbright students have asked in a survey. So the first one is, how do I make my LinkedIn profile stand out? I think we kind of covered this a little bit during the LinkedIn portion, but maybe we can just give a couple of pointers on this question.
I think one aspect we didn't quite touch on the LinkedIn profile is the recommendation piece. I really love that. I really love to read the recommendations of candidates, because it really tells you a lot about, you know, how they work with other people, you know, like who recommended them, like, was it recent, was it a manager, was it a peer? So I get, you know, you kind of, resumes and LinkedIn are just like a profile or, you know, a piece of a PDF. So the recommendation piece, I think, adds a bit of a personal touch to the whole thing. So I really I've been working on it myself to just ask for recommendations from people that I currently work with, and not just, you know, wait to leave a company and then like ask for recommendations. So, you know, you finished let's say a cross-functional project that impacted the whole company, and you've worked with so many different people, just ask for recommendations. It's a really cool way of also keeping that connection, but getting feedback and starting that conversation. So I think it's a useful thing, a useful practice to kind of build.
Another great way to stand out is to just remember to be authentic. It's really easy to just put up a standard LinkedIn profile that looks like everybody else's LinkedIn profile. And whenever I used to have a career coaching business, and whenever I would do LinkedIn profiles for clients, I would have them write something really interesting in their headline. Like I was saying earlier, if you're, let's say you're an executive assistant, don't just put executive assistant at Google. Put something interesting, like do you do triathlons? Are you a musician? Something that really makes you stand apart from other people, and that, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, what's going to pop out at you and what are people going to remember? Also, make sure to have a professional photo too.
Yeah, that's right. That's sometimes, it seems obvious, but no, I think that's a really important part because you can tell. There are multiple sections available in your LinkedIn profile. You should, as best you can, exhaust all of them. I can't tell you how many people reach out to me for networking, and they take the fact that I played and coach rugby, which is very niche and I'm buried at the bottom of my profile. But that typically gets my attention because those are the things that I love. Like Amanda said, if you run triathlons, if you cook, whatever it is, add that information. That's what makes you unique. That's, at the end of the day, we're in the matchmaking business, right? We're trying to find people that are going to, obviously you have to have the skill sets to do the job, but so much of it is about personality and the soft skills. And that first step is what you connect with in your profile and how you present yourself.
Great. So the second question we're going to cover is, how are companies being more aware of hiring practices and sourcing diverse candidates?
I can speak to this a little bit. So it's great. Everyone cares now. It's so wonderful. And this is a great opportunity for everyone. I think that there are a few gaps when it comes to diversity in historically undiverse tech sectors. One, there's not a ton of mentors. It's a really big challenge. And so there's a lot of internal mentorship going on in terms of how do we create spaces where people can really thrive. And that's challenging for a lot of people entering the industry because they look around and they don't see people who look like them. And then they realize that I'm going to be the person people are looking at in a few years. So we're going to have to work through this to get to that place. But when you are going to work at a company, you're the next generation of what cybersecurity looks like. So it's really exciting. So that's what's going on internally. On the outside, I would say that there's a big emphasis on hiring diverse people, either at a senior leadership perspective or at an entry-level perspective. So, really put yourself out there, get involved with those communities, because a lot of, I run a women's cybersecurity event here. I can tell you that community is so tight-knit. And if anyone asks for help in anything, everyone's willing to, really step up and help them out. So being involved with those communities are going to get you like an ally anywhere and help you kind of jump into those companies. And a lot of those companies go to those groups, have members in those groups, and that's why they're even really engaged in diversity. So, yeah, I would say it's kind of twofold.
I think that the tech industry has a long way to go in this area, but I do think that companies are paying more attention to this, which is really great to see. A lot of companies are starting to create recruiting policies around representation in their candidate pipeline. So, for example, Fivetran has a policy similar to the Rooney Rule, where we make sure that our pipeline has equal representation, ethnicity and gender-wise, for a lot of our key positions. And we make sure that we interview that we interview people from all different backgrounds before we make decisions about offers. And a lot of companies are doing this, and I think it's great. And I am excited to see what happens in the next couple of years in this space.
I think the mentorship and the groups, which goes back to the networking discussion, is really important too. And you're seeing increasingly more local organizations and now more online organizations that are promoting diversity and support of the diversity movement. If you do so, and we're happy to put some in the chat window as well too. I'm sure all of us have suggestions and recommendations. Those are really powerful groups. They're advocates, they're mentorship, they're also the networking component. The last thing I'll say is that it won't be long before the group that's participating on this call today through the Calbright program can help foster the increase in the movement. It's the snowball effect. And you've already seen people that there's a group in New York, hashtag Hire Black, that within a month has already mentored, I think, a couple thousand African-American women just by doing it online. So the viral effect that happens there, participate in that, because that'll also help you with your job search and in the networking aspect of that. So I think there's something pretty special happening. I agree with Amanda, there's a long way to go, but you guys are absolutely part of that movement too.
Another interesting thing I saw in the industry lately is that there is kind of a bit of a social pressure from in between companies. Like some are super committed and like publicly committed to increasing their diversity in their teams, and they share numbers and metrics and everything. And then maybe some competitors are not doing that. And so that creates, pressure for them. And also there's a type of pressure that comes from, people who are interviewing with certain companies. So for example, diversity is very, near and dear to my heart. And I've been working on so many different programs and all the teams I build. And that's, one of the main conversations that I have when I'm interviewing for myself, for example. So like asking those tough questions, I think, if that's what you care about and you want to make sure that the company you're, you end up joining, they have the same priorities, or at least they're kind of moving in the right direction. So it can be a conversation that you as a candidate can also start.
Yeah, and when you're interviewing at companies, it's okay to ask the people that are interviewing you what their diversity and inclusion policies and initiatives are. Because if you don't ask, then you won't know until you get there. And it's really important that anytime you interview that you remember that you're also interviewing them. They're not just interviewing you. And those responses that they give you will be very telling, and you should pay attention to that.
Perfect. So we have a couple more questions. The next one is, how can people with non-tech backgrounds break into the industry?
I think I mentioned this earlier, but those customer support roles, I know it's not a super glamorous position, but executive assistant positions are a great foot in the door. You get a lot of exposure to leadership and a lot of different parts of the organization. And a lot of companies have engineering internship programs, 5Tran included, and we have internships on our customer success and our product teams as well.
And Elena brought this up actually on a previous call, but TPMs, project managers, they require less training and get you access to a lot of technical teams. It's actually a great way for you to like round robin and see what technology you want to dive the deepest into. And they are on the uptick too in terms of demand for jobs.
Perfect. So we have a question in the chat. How to fill the gap in hands and experience in a particular field, for example, cybersecurity, despite of certifications completed?
Cybersecurity is a challenging industry to break into, not impossible, but it's the problem with cybersecurity is they put people in buckets. You only watch this and then you only respond to this. And those buckets kind of serve like a checks and balances purpose. So there's a lot of trust. There's this feeling of giving the keys to the castle to someone who's in charge of your security program. With that said, there are tons of places where you can learn how to pen test, and that is huge and in demand. And there's lots of free resources online to do that and learning how to hack into these things. There's a ton of community outreach. Hit me up on LinkedIn. We're we do a partnership with this company called CISO Share, where we do like pipelining, and we basically are trying to place entry-level people at companies, you know, for free, just to help the industry. Because we honestly, my industry needs more people to come, or else we will be in a very bad position soon. So, you know, there's a ton of free resources. I actually don't recommend certifications in Silicon Valley. No one really cares. If you're on the East Coast, everyone cares. So keep that in mind. But there's a ton of free resources. You shouldn't have to pay for it. You do have to put in the time, you do have to put in the effort, but taking a Coursera class in Python is just as productive as getting your CISSP.
I think Lana hit on a very important point that's important for job seekers. Remember, there aren't enough people right now to fill the jobs available in technology. That being said, you have to have realistic expectations about what it means to break into technology. I think there are a lot of programs out there that are doing a disservice, making very big promises, go through a 4 to 6 week boot camp, become trained to be a programmer, and all of a sudden you're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. It really doesn't happen that way. What does happen is you do get that entry level position that Amanda was talking about. You learn more as you're on the job and in the environment and with your peers. That's how you gain experience to the point where you're able to go take on the next level in career advancement. Companies want to invest in people that want to be in and learn technology. So it's just important to set your expectations and be appreciative of the opportunity, because the move up is very fast once you're in. Assuming that you put forward the work.
Perfect. And then also being a part of schools and programs such as Calbright is really great. We're also great for breaking into the tech industry as well. So I guess we can move on to the next question. It says, my field is cybersecurity with Calbright, and I finished Security Plus course, and I'm not confident enough to this field, and I'm very nervous if I got hired somewhere and I can't do the job on the first day. Is there any training that's provided for entry level?
In cybersecurity, almost definitely, because it is the keys to the castle situation. So I would highly recommend, if you're, I think you said the CompTIA, if that's the cert you got, or stick with, you know, a SOC role, analyst role. That's going to get you exposure to like seeing how things function. Those roles definitely have training. You know, there are also internships out there, but there are also like right now, since everything's remote, there's a lot of opportunity for you to, like, Phoenix has a ton of SOC jobs. That's not very convenient for someone in San Francisco, but right now, you know, they're all remote too. So it's a good opportunity for you to get into to a contract role, which there are tons of SOC roles that are contract, or, you know, even a full-time role that's remote. But yes, there's tons of training on the site, because so much, you know, there are 10,000, 40,000 security software companies out there. You're going to have to be trained on one of them. You can't know all of them. So,
Lana, what does SOC stand for?
Oh, Security Operations Center.
Great. So also, I think one of the attendees also asked, Lana, what is the TPM? I just wanted to cover this from the previous question.
There's actually like three of them, but the one I was referencing was a project manager who manages projects. Typically, a project's going to require touching the dev team, the QA team, maybe the biz team, I don't know. And so they make sure all the deliverables are met and, you know, everyone's on the right path. So it's highly skilled in communication, highly skilled in organization, positive work ethic, good vibes, and get things done. Exposed to a lot of tech though.
Great. And just a reminder that Calbright is a certified college, so this will help a lot of these students transition into these roles. So if any of recruiters are interested in connecting with students, please let me know. And so another one is, like, I recently fallen in love with LinkedIn Learning, and I have completed several learning paths because of Calbright has given us free access. I've maxed out my skill area because of my LinkedIn profile. Maximum is 50. Should I be more selective, or is piling on as many as I've completed a good thing?
I would be very curious to find out more about like how did you get, so many, I guess, diverse interests in so many things. One thing to kind of keep in mind with the LinkedIn, profile, but also with the resume is not necessarily, your biography. So like you don't need to put everything that you've ever done on there. Just make sure it is relevant for, the types of roles that you're going for. So if they're all super relevant, I would probably focus or like keep maybe the ones that you're most confident in. I wouldn't really overdo it with 50, to be honest. That's kind of my personal opinion.
Okay, great. Are there any more questions coming in?
It looks like someone asked about virtual internships. I think any internship in your field that you want to work in definitely carries value for sure. Any experience that you can get doing something that you want to get into is important. So my answer would be yes.
Perfect. It says, how do one get better pay for an entry-level job? How does one get better pay for an entry-level job?
I don't know if I have a popular answer to this. An entry-level job is about getting as many skills as quickly as humanly possible. So I would judge your entry-level job at how fast you're learning, not how much money you're going to make, because it's going to change your life how much you learn in that moment. Certainly after 5 years, 3 years, we can start really like putting the hammer down and setting some expectations. But when you're early on, it's like, do I have someone who's going to teach me? Do I have access? Do I get to touch the things I want to work with? That is the game changer. And yeah, I mean, I slept on a couch when I first started my career. I get it. It's not the best, but I don't have to sleep on a couch anymore. So it gets better. Learn a lot of skills, have people who are invested in you, and get the access to the experience you want.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, to add to that, there are also a lot of resources online to figure out kind of what is, the pay for that type of role. So you're not getting underpaid. But to Lana's point, like it's not that moment in time where you should be focusing only on the compensation. And there are more important things, everything that she mentioned before. I would focus on that first of all.
Yeah, I was going to just mention that you are allowed to ask for the compensation band for the role that you're interviewing for. And, recruiters have to tell you what it is. So, and that's in California, and people can't ask you how much you currently make. So just keep that in mind.
Great. And then we have the final question on LinkedIn. Should I include side hustles like driving for Lyft or creating my own dropshipping company?
I would say yes, especially if you're doing something. If you have started your own dropshipping company, that to me shows initiative. And that's part of your story, right? If you're trying to break into a new industry, they want people that are looking to learn, that are self-starters, and that to me speaks to that. So my answer to that would be yes, for sure. But frame it in a context that, and think about it how it relates to the job that you're asking for, or the role that you're looking for.
And just know that one question you may get when you interview, especially if you started your own company, which is awesome, is, well, what are you going to do with that? This is a full-time job. Are you going to have time? Have an answer for that question. As long as you're expecting it, it's going to happen. As long as you expect it, you can have a good answer for it. They just want to know you're going to put in the time.
Perfect. So someone also asked, should I clean up my LinkedIn profile to remove any prior career / certifications, i.e. insurance adjuster / broker, while I'm doing IT?
I wouldn't think that would matter. I mean, I think it's important to show your job history. You don't want to erase your job history just because you're doing something else. That's just my opinion though.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, think about the skills that you performed or the things that you learned and how they're going to transfer into, right? So Lana talked about project managers, right? If you had a role where you had to be really organized and schedule and coordinate, those are things that can translate into a technology role.
It does make you more interesting, honestly. It's fascinating. So I would keep it as well.
Yeah, for sure. I would just add to, to pretty much everyone's point, but to make it and have a clear idea of like what your story is like. And you're going to be asked like, well, that's an interesting change. Why did you decide to go from insurance to tech, and have a story for that connects all the dots. And as long as you have that, it's part of your story. It's interesting, it's unique. So use it.
Perfect. So we have a couple more questions. Is it wise to start an IT business with little or no experience, even if you have the skills?
Unless you have customers already, which I know people who've figured that out somehow, like I would say not right now. Part of the reason of becoming a consultant and working for yourself is building the network so business comes to you. When you run your own business, there's a lot going on. You have to do the work, find the work, do the work, and then figure out how to get paid for the work. Figuring out how to get paid for the work can take a lot of time, So I would say if you could eliminate one of those pieces coming to you, it's super helpful. But if you have that already, people coming to you already have the business, then, it would be a good opportunity to learn.
Perfect. And the last question would be, how would I apply for virtual internships or training? Does it work through LinkedIn?
Well, Fivetran has internships open. I think we have 2 right now. And, you can just apply through our careers page. And I'm pretty sure that's how other internships work as well. You'll just have to apply online. Or you can reach out to specific individuals at companies and ask them if they would be willing to bring you on as an intern. But just make sure you indicate specifically what you would want to do as an intern. Don't make them figure that out for you.
Perfect. So I don't think we have any, so just an FYI, we're towards the end of the webinar, and you will be, the Calbright students will be receiving a survey, and each speaker linked to it. So again, I wanted to thank you, Calbright, in partnership with Albert's List, for putting on this amazing webinar with us together. And I wanted to also thank the speakers for dedicating their time and coming out here today to present to us some amazing tips and tricks on like breaking the tech and networking and navigating this hiring process. And then also thank you, Calbright students, for being here as well. I know there's many places you could be here today, but being here and learning from these amazing speakers is how you gain this knowledge. So thank you for participating, and we're gonna wrap up the session. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you. Have a good
All right.
week.
Bye.